The Galactic Coalition had been a beacon of hope for centuries. Over 120 species had united their strengths, cultures, and technologies to maintain peace and prosperity across hundreds of star systems. Their fleets were unmatched, their defenses thought impenetrable. But now, all of that was crumbling. The Koru swarm was unlike any enemy they had faced before. A terrifying hive mind species, it spread like wildfire, consuming entire planets and leaving only silence in its wake. No matter how advanced their weapons, no matter how carefully they planned, the Coalition's forces were overwhelmed. One fleet after another fell in brutal battles, the swarm's endless waves never slowing, never stopping. In the Grand Council chamber on Helion Prime, the Coalition's leaders gathered in urgent session. Massive holograms flickered in the air, showing the rapid advance of the Koru swarm. The faces around the table were grim, a mixture of fear, frustration, and exhaustion. "We are running out of time," Councillor Drevik said, voice low but steady. "If we do not find a way to stop the swarm soon, there will be nothing left to save." The other councillors nodded. They had seen the destruction firsthand, witnessed entire star systems fall to ruin. The Coalition's once proud fleets were now scattered remnants, retreating before an enemy that seemed unstoppable. "We need a new strategy," Admiral Xarek said, pounding his fist on the table. "Our current tactics only delay the inevitable." "Our scientists have tried everything," said Ambassador Leela, shaking her head. "The swarm adapts faster than we can develop new weapons. It's like fighting a shadow that learns our every move." Silence fell. Every option had been exhausted. Every ally had been called upon. And still, the Koru swarm pushed forward. Then, Councillor Drevik's eyes narrowed. "There is one last option, one we have avoided for centuries." The room held its breath. No one spoke. This was the name forbidden in Coalition halls, the species that had been exiled, labeled as reckless, unpredictable, and dangerous. Humans. A murmur spread. The name carried weight. The humans were infamous. Their history was filled with chaos, conflict, and defiance. They refused to obey Coalition laws, they rejected control, and they were banned from Coalition space decades ago. "They are wild," another councillor said. "We cannot trust them." "But they are survivors," Drevik replied, "and perhaps that is what we need." For a long moment, the council debated. Fear warred with hope. Desperation pushed against doubt. Finally, the council voted. With heavy hearts and trembling hands, they decided to send envoys to Earth, to seek out the humans and plead for their help. As the meeting ended, the chamber was quiet. No one knew what awaited them. Only that the Coalition's fate now rested on the shoulders of a species no one dared trust: humans. Outside the chamber, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The journey to Earth was long and tense. The envoys traveled aboard the sleek starship Valiant, cutting through the void at speeds that blurred distant stars. Inside, the small team was a mix of nervousness and determination. They carried the weight of an entire galaxy's hope, and a name few dared to speak aloud: humans. Once, the Coalition had tried to integrate humans into their society, but their volatile emotions, refusal to follow orders, and relentless independence had caused too many conflicts. The Coalition leaders had deemed them too dangerous, too unpredictable to be trusted. So humans were cast out, their homeworld quarantined and left to its own devices. Now, with the Koru swarm swallowing entire star systems, the Coalition had no choice but to reconsider. The Valiant's captain, a calm and experienced officer named Singer, stared at the star chart before them. Earth was a small blue dot, a fragile world surrounded by unknowns. "Do we really have no other options?" one envoy whispered during a quiet moment. "Not anymore," Senna replied. "The humans may be wild, but they survive. That counts for something." As the ship entered Earth's orbit, the envoys watched in awe. The planet was vibrant. Oceans gleamed, clouds swirled, and cities sparkled with lights even as night fell. Unlike the sterile, controlled worlds of the Coalition, Earth felt alive in a way none of them remembered. The envoys landed near a major city, careful to avoid causing alarm. Their technology and appearance were unfamiliar, and humans stared with curiosity and suspicion. It was clear that Earth was not a unified world. Nations still struggled with their own conflicts and problems. Yet beneath the surface, there was a resilience, a spark that something greater was possible. The envoys requested a meeting with human leaders. To their surprise, the humans agreed, but only on their terms. The humans were polite but firm. They wanted to know what the coalition could offer, why they should risk their people in a war that was not theirs. One of the humans, a woman named Dr. Emma Keller, spoke clearly. "We've survived plenty of fights on this planet, but we don't fight for others without reason. What's in it for us?" The envoys explained the threat of the Koru swarm, a force that would eventually reach Earth if left unchecked. They spoke of the coalition's plea for help and the chance to join something bigger. But humans listened closely, asking tough questions. They wanted honesty, respect, and a role where their unique strengths mattered. "We don't want to be controlled or told what to do," Emma said. "We want to be partners, not pawns." The envoys agreed. They understood that this was different from previous coalition alliances. Humans would not simply follow orders. They demanded respect and trust. Over several days of discussion, the envoys began to understand the humans better. They were fiercely independent, innovative, and surprisingly united despite their differences. They questioned everything and tested every idea. It was exhausting, but also inspiring. By the time the envoys prepared to leave, they knew the decision was no longer theirs alone. If humans accepted, they could tip the balance of the war. If they refused, the coalition's doom seemed certain. As the Valiant lifted off from Earth's atmosphere, the envoys felt a strange mixture of hope and fear. The galaxy's last hope had been placed in the hands of a species few understood, and whose true power was yet to be revealed. The Valiant's shuttle pierced through Earth's atmosphere, the familiar blue and green planet growing larger by the second. The envoys felt a strange mix of excitement and uncertainty. After all, they were entering the world of a species once outlawed by the coalition, a species known for their chaos, contradictions, and unpredictable nature. Their landing site was a sprawling city filled with towering skyscrapers, buzzing with the energy of millions of humans going about their lives. Unlike the calm, orderly environments the envoys were accustomed to, the city was alive with noise, color, and movement. The humans here were unlike anything the envoys had ever seen. The human leaders awaited them in a sleek but modest conference hall. The envoys noticed immediately that the humans did not wear uniforms or badges of rank. Instead, they carried themselves with an easy confidence and a sharp, watchful gaze. Dr. Emma Keller, the human leader the envoys had met previously, welcomed them with a firm handshake. "Welcome to Earth," she said simply, her tone steady but direct. "You asked for our help. Now you'll have to convince us it's worth the risk." The envoys exchanged glances. This was no simple alliance negotiation. It was a test of trust, respect, and understanding. "The Koru swarm is advancing," Ambassador Leela explained carefully. "They consume all in their path, and soon they will reach your world if we do not stop them." Emma nodded. "We've heard stories, but what exactly do you expect from us? What can humans do that others cannot?" Captain Sinner stepped forward. "Your resilience, your ability to adapt, your unpredictability. You do not follow set patterns, and you think differently than any species in the coalition." A murmur ran through the room. Humans were known for their creativity and resourcefulness, but also for their stubbornness and resistance to control. Emma raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a compliment and a warning." "It is both," Sinner admitted. "But we believe that with your strengths, we have a chance." The human leaders discussed among themselves. They spoke openly about their past conflicts, their world's imperfections, and their fierce desire to protect their home. They did not promise blind loyalty. Instead, they offered partnership, a relationship built on mutual respect. After hours of discussion, the humans agreed to a trial. They would send representatives to train alongside coalition forces. They would share their knowledge and test their tactics in simulated battles. But they demanded one condition: their people would fight only as equals, never as pawns. The envoys accepted the terms. It was a fragile agreement, born from desperation and hope. As the meeting ended, Emma offered a final thought. We humans have survived because we never give up. But we fight best when we choose our battles. If you want us, you must be ready to face us as equals. The envoys left Earth with a renewed sense of purpose. The Coalition's fate now hinged on a partnership unlike any other. One that would challenge every assumption about war, strength, and survival. Earth was no longer just a distant, rebellious planet. It was the last hope for a dying galaxy. The Coalition's training grounds were a sprawling complex of advanced simulation chambers and battle arenas, nestled on a neutral planet far from the front lines. When the first group of humans arrived, they immediately stood out, not only because of their different appearances, but because of their behavior. Colonel Marcus Hale, the human unit's leader, walked into the room with a casual swagger. Unlike the Coalition officers, who moved with strict discipline and formality, the humans joked loudly, argued openly, and laughed even as they prepared for drills. Some Coalition commanders watched with thinly veiled skepticism. Could such unruly warriors really make a difference? The training began with simple exercises. Coalition soldiers were taught rigid formations and precise maneuvers honed over centuries. Humans, however, threw those rules aside. They improvised on the spot, turning mistakes into new tactics. When a simulated attack didn't go as planned, the humans analyzed it quickly and changed their approach, often in ways no one had anticipated. "We don't follow scripts," Marcus told a Coalition officer who questioned their methods. "War isn't a dance. It's messy. It's chaotic. You adapt or you die." The humans' willingness to challenge authority was both frustrating and fascinating. They debated orders loudly, questioned strategies openly, and refused to accept what they saw as outdated tactics. Some Coalition leaders bristled, but others began to see the value in their approach. Lieutenant Kale, a tactical officer from the Selvar species, admitted in a quiet moment, "Their unpredictability makes them hard to anticipate. It's infuriating but effective." Training sessions often ended with humans improvising new weapons or gadgets from whatever materials were available. They laughed at rules about approved equipment and created simple but deadly tools that surprised their instructors. Beyond combat skills, the humans shared stories of their history, of surviving natural disasters, wars, and countless challenges. They spoke of their spirit, their refusal to back down, and their belief in fighting for what they loved. Their passion was contagious. One night, after a grueling day, Marcus gathered his team. "We don't just fight to kill," he said. "We fight to protect our families, our homes, and the chance for a better future. That's something no enemy can take away." Coalition commanders began to take note. What the humans lacked in formal training, they made up for in creativity, determination, and heart. Slowly, respect replaced skepticism. But not everyone was convinced. Some questioned whether humans' reckless style would hold up in real combat. Could their boldness become their undoing? As the days passed, the Coalition prepared to test the humans in their first joint mission. A mission that would prove whether these wild cards were the galaxy's salvation or a dangerous gamble. The stakes had never been higher. The day of the first joint mission arrived with a heavy weight pressing down on everyone involved. Coalition commanders and soldiers watched closely as the human-led team prepared to strike deep into Koru swarm territory. The target was a hive node, a critical control center that coordinated the swarm's relentless attacks. Disabling it could buy precious time and slow the enemy's advance. Colonel Marcus Hale's team moved swiftly and quietly through dense alien terrain. Unlike the organized, methodical strikes the Coalition was used to, the humans relied on stealth, improvisation, and intuition. Every step was calculated yet flexible. They adjusted constantly, reacting to threats that sensors sometimes missed. The Koru swarm's defenses were terrifying. Massive biostructures pulsated with a strange energy, and swarms of smaller creatures guarded every approach. But the humans did not hesitate. They used distractions, improvised explosives, and even hacked into alien systems with devices cobbled together from Coalition tech and human ingenuity. "This isn't about brute force," Marcus said through their comms. "It's about being smarter, faster, and unpredictable." The mission was tense, every second bringing new dangers. When alarms finally blared, The humans were already in position. They struck hard, targeting the hive node's core with precise explosives. The structure began to collapse, disrupting the swarm's network. As they retreated, the Koru creatures scrambled to respond. Confused and disorganized, the swarm faltered in ways no one had seen before. The humans moved with speed and cunning, slipping through the chaos to escape. Back at Coalition Command, the news spread like wildfire. The hive node was destroyed. The Koru swarm was stunned. For the first time, they hesitated. Soldiers and commanders erupted with a mixture of relief and disbelief. Humans had done what advanced coalition forces could not. They had turned the tide, if only slightly. But the victory came with a cost. Several humans were wounded, and one was lost. The harsh reality of war weighed heavily on the team. Yet their spirit remained unbroken. "We fight for each other," Marcus reminded his team. "That's our strength." The coalition began to see humans not as reckless wild cards, but as fierce and clever warriors, a force that brought hope when hope seemed impossible. Still, some remained wary. The Koru swarm was vast and relentless. Could one victory change the course of a war that seemed endless? As the humans prepared for their next mission, the galaxy held its breath. The most terrifying species had entered the fight, and the outcome was far from certain. After the success of their first mission, the humans quickly earned a reputation that spread through the coalition ranks like wildfire. Their unpredictable tactics, relentless energy, and refusal to back down unsettled the Koru swarm in ways no one had imagined possible. What had once seemed like an unstoppable enemy now showed signs of hesitation. Human units began deploying across multiple battlefronts. They operated in small, agile teams that moved swiftly and struck without warning. Their unpredictability made it nearly impossible for the Koru to anticipate their moves. They avoided large-scale battles where the swarm's numbers could overwhelm them and instead focused on sabotage, disruption, and hit-and-run strikes. Coalition commanders, once skeptical, found themselves studying human strategies with intense interest. Lieutenant Kahl, who had once doubted the humans, admitted quietly, "They do not fight like any other species. They are chaotic, yes, but within that chaos lies a deadly precision." The Koru swarm reacted with confusion. Their hive nodes, critical to maintaining order among the countless creatures, began falling one by one. Without these control centers, the swarm's movements became fragmented and less coordinated. Smaller groups of Koru creatures were isolated and vulnerable. In one daring raid, a human team led by Captain Marcus Hale infiltrated a heavily fortified Koru nest and planted explosives that crippled the creature's communication links. The mission was risky, and casualties were high, but the result was undeniable. The Koru swarm's advance slowed dramatically. Back at Coalition Command, hope began to rekindle. Reports from the front lines told of humans rallying other species, inspiring soldiers who had long felt defeated. The humans' defiance, passion, and refusal to surrender energized the entire coalition. But the humans themselves were not naive. They knew the fight was far from over. Each victory came with a price: friends lost, wounds deep, and a war that tested every ounce of their resolve. In quiet moments, Marcus would gather his team and remind them why they fought. This isn't just about winning battles. It's about proving that no matter how dark the universe gets, we refuse to be extinguished. As more species adopted human tactics, the coalition's forces evolved. Old doctrines gave way to new strategies inspired by the wild cards from Earth. The Koru swarm's momentum faltered, and for the first time, the coalition dared to dream of victory. Still, the Koru were relentless. They adapted quickly, launching counterattacks and deploying new, terrifying creatures. The war remained brutal and unforgiving. Yet, through every challenge, the humans stood firm. Their unpredictability was no longer a liability but their greatest weapon. They fought not just with technology, but with heart. The galaxy watched closely. The tide of war was turning. But the final battle had yet to come. The war against the Koru swarm had dragged on longer than anyone had hoped. Each victory tasted bittersweet. For every hive node destroyed, for every swarm wave repelled, there was a human or coalition soldier who would never return home. The cost of survival was written in loss, and no one felt it more deeply than the humans. Colonel Marcus Hale stood before his battered unit, their faces grim but determined. The recent battle had been one of the bloodiest yet. Several comrades had fallen, and many more bore wounds both seen and unseen. But despite the pain, there was no talk of surrender. "We fight because we must," Marcus said quietly, "because if we don't, no one else will. Our homes, our families, everything we hold dear depends on us standing strong." The humans had learned the hard way that courage alone was not enough. They had suffered losses that left scars not only on their bodies but on their hearts. Yet with every sacrifice, their resolve hardened. Across the coalition, other species watched the humans with a mixture of awe and respect. Unlike many who fought out of duty or fear, humans fought out of love. Love for their world, for each other, and for a future they refused to lose. The story of a young human medic, Lila Moreno, spread quickly through the ranks. Under relentless fire, she risked everything to save wounded soldiers, human and alien alike. Her actions inspired others, a reminder that bravery was not just about attacking the enemy, but protecting those who fought beside you. In the quiet moments between battles, the humans shared their stories, tales of hardship, hope, and determination. They talked about what it meant to endure when the odds were against them, about standing tall even when the world seemed to crumble. Their passion rekindled the coalition's spirit. Slowly, walls of mistrust crumbled as species began to unite, inspired by humans' unwavering commitment. But the Koru swarm was far from defeated. New waves arrived, fiercer and more numerous than before. The battlefields became graveyards of shattered ships and broken dreams. The weight of the fight threatened to crush the coalition's hope. Yet humans refused to yield. In the darkest hours, they stood as beacons of light. Their resilience shone brightest when all seemed lost. Marcus gathered his unit one last time before the next assault. "This fight will ask everything from us. But we are not just fighting to survive. We fight to live, to build a future where our children know peace." The next mission would be the hardest yet. A direct strike at the Koru's heart. The outcome would decide the fate of countless lives and the galaxy's future. As the humans prepared to face the storm, they carried with them the sacrifices of those who had fallen. Their resolve was unbreakable, their spirit indomitable. In the end, it was not just strength or strategy that would win the war. It was the human will to never give up, no matter the cost. The galaxy held its breath. After years of relentless fighting, the coalition and the humans had reached the Koru swarm's heart, a colossal hive planet pulsating with dark energy, the source of the swarm's power and control. It was a place no one dared enter before, a fortress of terror that seemed alive, watching, waiting. Colonel Marcus Hale stood at the forefront of the combined forces, surrounded by soldiers from every species united for one last mission. The air was thick with tension, hope, and the weight of sacrifice. The humans' journey from outcasts to saviors had been hard-fought, and now everything depended on this final assault. "This is the moment we've trained for," Marcus told his team. "No matter what happens, we fight together as one." The battle began with a deafening roar. Swarms of Koru creatures flooded the battlefield, their terrifying forms emerging from every shadow. The coalition's fleets bombarded the planet's surface, while ground forces clashed in brutal, desperate combat. The humans moved with a fierce determination, using every skill they had honed over the years. They fought not just with weapons, but with cunning and heart, finding weaknesses in the swarm's defenses others had missed. Inside the hive's core, Marcus led a small strike team tasked with destroying the control nexus, the dark crystal that bound the swarm's minds into a single entity. It was heavily guarded, but the humans pressed forward, knowing failure meant doom for the galaxy. Explosions shook the cavernous chambers as the team fought through waves of enemies. Losses mounted, but they never faltered. Finally, Marcus reached the nexus, planting explosives with trembling hands. "This ends now," he whispered. As the countdown ticked down, the hive began to collapse. The swarm's control shattered. Outside, the Koru creatures faltered, disoriented and leaderless. The coalition forces pushed forward, driving the enemy back for the first time in decades. The tide had turned. When the dust settled, silence fell. The cost was staggering. Countless lives lost, cities destroyed, dreams shattered. But the Koru swarm was broken. Marcus looked out at the horizon, the first rays of dawn breaking over a scared but hopeful galaxy. Humans and coalition members alike stood together, weary but victorious. The war had tested their limits and forced unlikely allies to trust one another. The humans, once feared and rejected, had become the galaxy's salvation, not because they were perfect warriors, but because of their unyielding spirit. As peace slowly returned, the coalition leaders reconsidered their stance on humanity. The species they had once cast aside had proven that true strength came not just from power or technology, but from the courage to stand and fight when all options seemed lost. And so, with the Koru threat extinguished, a new chapter began. One where humans and the coalition would face the future together, stronger for the battles they had survived. The galaxy had been saved by the most terrifying species of all, humans.